Thank you and welcome back to the City of Farmers Branch City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 16th. We are now going to go back to our study session and resume with item C4, which is discuss and give staff direction regarding Firehouse Theater's facility use agreement updates. Excuse me.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor and Council. Jennifer Rainey, Assistant to the City Manager. Staff presented a report during the March 5th study session at the request of Councilmember Jackson, and the Council determined to form an ad hoc committee for the discussion of the Farmers Branch Community Theater, also known as Firehouse Theater. So for those of you new to Council, I wanted to share some of that background and what that existing facility use agreement has. So that existing facility use agreement has a term that goes August to July. It has a couple of different termination bullet points there on reasons or areas that we could terminate that agreement. There are also some specifics in there that the city currently provides maintenance and repairs. The city is currently paying for utilities, and the city is responsible for waste disposal, recycling, fire alarm monitoring, janitorial services. So previous council direction, we received quite a bit of council direction. We met, I believe it was in March, and then twice in April, received some council direction. So that previous council direction is all summarized here, where all utilities were to be paid to the city by Firehouse Theater, and then the city was going to pay for pest control and a portion of the telephone linked to the fire alarm monitoring, because that was required. So there were 2 phone lines required for that fire alarm monitoring. Firehouse Theater was also supposed to, the direction was to provide annual report, including attendance, performance, engagement, ancillary programs, and then to provide updates to council upon request. The facility value was quantified at that $61,000 to $73,000 per year, and then allowing the city to use that facility when not impacting their production schedule. And then facility use years, other dates were going to be modified to align with more of that fiscal year, just so it's a little bit more similar to the rest of our agreements. They also recommended a council liaison position and then cooperation with the city and then Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD for educational training and rec programming. So Firehouse Theater proposed revisions to that. They were provided all of those, and then they provided red lines back to us. Those red lines have been shared with you, and if you don't mind, I'll get through this and we'll go through those red lines together so we're not flipping back and forth between slides. So there was a significant number, I think it was a total of 18 red lines that were provided on various articles within that agreement. In the budgetary impacts of facility use agreements, since we are in that budget cycle right now, I wanted to provide that total. The council proposed average annual cost for Firehouse Theater. That electric was just an average based off of the usage, I believe it was 2019 and on. Previous to 2019, we had a little bit different rate system, so the electric rates were a lot higher. So tried to pull a more recent average there, similar with water, gas, and then that phone, internet, and Wi-Fi, minus those 2 lines for fire monitoring. I believe the 2 lines are about $30 to $35 a piece, so subtracting that total of $70 monthly. Solid waste is a newer contract, so we had that total. I believe it was $199 per week for twice weekly pickup. And then janitorial was contracted at $48.82 per cleaning at roughly 120 shows. So that's where that average comes in at. It's a great rate for janitorial. So in Firehouse, when they've proposed their revisions to that contract, those red lines that they've proposed, those red lines include capping those utilities. So you'll see that bottom number there in the blue. They've requested a utility annual cap at $13,100. So it's just a little bit off. It looks like it's about $500 off from that average of electric, water, and gas for the past few years. And then they've also requested that they no longer pay for phone, internet, or Wi-Fi. They're not currently paying for that, but they did redline that out of that contract that we provided to them. Similar to solid waste, they requested that they not be responsible for solid waste, but they did specify to keep janitorial in. So if you're agreeable to it, I'd like to just go ahead and pull up that red line document so we're all looking at the same pages together. We can go through them one by one instead of flipping back and forth between the different pages.
I do have a quick question. In the event that we do have legal questions for our attorney regarding this contract, would it be okay to go to executive session and address those, or do we address those in open session?
I kind of want to see how the conversation goes, but if we are going to be talking about renegotiating the terms of this agreement, Probably ought to be done in closed session. If we're simply going to, as a wholesale matter, reject all of them and say, take it back to them on a take it or leave it basis, then we're done. But if we want to talk about renegotiating specific terms or asking questions about them, you're right. Executive session would be appropriate.
Yeah, I have some legal questions, and maybe I'll reserve my questions until then, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Go ahead.
let me ask if anybody has any general questions at this point regarding this. I will say that I have a number of questions regarding notations that were made in the contract. And could you go back to the, yes. So I want to make sure I'm absolutely clear on what is being presented here. The Firehouse Theater is looking for a cap on what they pay for utilities of $13,100,
Among other things, yes.
among other things, which any cost above that are incurred for utilities, gas, water, or electric, whatnot, would be borne by the city.
Correct.
Okay. And was there a reason given why they don't want to pay for the solid waste? They're the
There was-
ones making their own refuse.
No, there was not a reason outside of what was provided in that red line.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll hold the rest of my questions for executive session. Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jennifer. Solid waste is what I think solid waste is here, right? We're sending a pump over to the firehouse and we're pumping out the sewer system? Is that what that is? What
No.
is that?
Trash.
Bulk waste.
Trash.
Trash, yes.
Okay, it's just, it's
Twice
trash.
weekly pickup of, I believe it's
Okay.
$199. Yes.
All right. Just want to make sure I understood that. Is the electric, water, and gas at that facility, is it metered, or is there some kind of averaging or estimating that's going on? It's metered?
It is metered, yeah.
Okay, it is metered. The janitorial and the solid waste services are part of the bigger city negotiated contract. So if they were to go out and get their own contract, in all likelihood, they're going to pay more because they don't have the power of economies as we do here with the city, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think I have another question. Let me look. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything at this time? Okay. Then we will continue the rest of this discussion in executive session, so we'll just add it on to the other items.
Understood.
Moving on will be item C5, discuss the Animal Adoption Center's capacity and future needs.
All right, that is also partially me. Again, Jennifer Rainey, Assistant to the City Manager. However, I would like to introduce our new Animal Services Manager. I don't know that many of you have formally met him, but Tyler Winkler joins us. He just joined us in May after a long recruiting and process trying to get him over here. We are really eager to have him in our staff now. He brings with him a wealth of animal services field operations, as well as operations in shelters and Humane Society of the United States. He's spoken nationally at nationwide conferences and traveled the United States to share information and education to animal shelters across the United States. So I will let him take the reins on most of this for the animal services update.
Good afternoon or good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm very, very happy to be here. It's nice to meet all of you. So at the request of Councilmember Jackson, we are going to provide an update on our animal shelter capacity. And so what we have before you is the initial drawings of our building. And it's important to remember as we kind of look at this is our building has undergone some renovations over the past 15 years or so that it's been open. So this might look a little bit confusing, but we've tried to identify the areas by color coding. So we have 25 total dog kennels. So you can see there are 8 dog hold kennels, 10 dog adoption kennels, and again, it can be confusing to delineate between those two, but those are our general housing area that we have for animals that come into, or for dogs that come into our care. You can see in the top of that, there are 4 dog kennels that is marked ISO. So those are our isolation kennels. So we'll utilize those animals that come in that we suspect of being sick, injured in some way that need more advanced medical care. It gives us a way to isolate those animals from our general population to keep them healthy. You can see on the right there, the top 2 purple rooms are marked as flexible housing rooms. So it's important to note when our building was initially designed, it was designed with flexibility in mind. So we intentionally flex the use of these spaces, and so we're able to utilize those in a myriad of different ways. Currently, as of this morning, when I left the shelter to come here, we were housing roughly 20 kittens in Shoreline kennels. 'Tis kitten season. Currently, we have a large influx of kittens coming into our care. So we've been able to flex one of these multi-use rooms and put in stainless steel kennels like you would see at your veterinary office. And we're utilizing one of those rooms for that. And then we also have a larger influx of puppies. It's summer. It's a very, very busy time for shelters. So those are those 2 flex rooms. If you come later on in the year, it might be used to co-house 1 or 2 dogs at a time. But in the current utilization, it's intended to be flexible to fit our specific needs. Those other 2 rooms that are in green, those are our adult cat co-housing areas. So we're very fortunate in that we do have co-housing areas for our feline friends. Those are for adult cats that come in that have been from a home environment. It gives them a place to unwind and be in a more normal environment than stuck in a cage. So those are those 2 rooms. Everything on the right, those 2 purple rooms, 2 green rooms, and then that first 10 dog adoption hallway, that's the only area of our facility that is currently open to the public. So those 10 dog adoption rooms, if you've been to our shelter, it's super, super nice, but it does pose an issue that currently we do house dogs in the back. So right now staff is escorting visitors to the back area where animals are being held in that 8 dog hold room. And then everything past that is a medical isolation area. So sometimes we'll hold animals undergoing cats undergoing trap, neuter, return. So folks are able to trap feral cats in our community, bring them to us. We provide sterilization services, vaccinations. We hold them in an area till they're recovered, and then we release those animals. Areas in red are designated as quarantine areas. We are mandated by the state. We are the local rabies control authority for the city of Farmers Branch, so we're required to maintain quarantine facilities for rabies cases. We have 3 dog quarantine facilities, and then we also have 2 cat quarantine facilities as well. And then you see another red box there. That is in our surgical suite. So we do not utilize that area for general animal housing because it is inside of a sterile medical area. So that is only utilized for surgery days. So this is just a broad overview of our current shelter layout. Again, we have 25 total cat kennels, 2 cat rooms, 2 flex rooms. We've identified our capacity at 70 animals. And again, as we go through the presentation, it's important to keep in mind that we do have flexibility in our housing areas in our facilities. So, right now we have roughly 70 animals in our care as of about an hour ago when I checked. But we're able to make it work and flex these areas as we need. So here is there's a lot of qualifiers on this, but this is the daily shelter population yearly average. So what we did is we went back and looked at our historical data from 2014, and we calculated the average population in our shelter per day. And it's important to note that these numbers are seasonal. So right now at the height of, kitten puppy season, our numbers tend to be a little bit higher. So I do have the 2024 projections on there as well. Right now, I believe our average is right at 72 animals per day for 2024. Now, it's important to note that during the winter months, that number statistically will be a little bit lower, so that average may come down a bit. But you can see the yearly trend. But generally speaking, for the last 3 years, we've had between 60 and 70 animals in custody every single day. And then here are our, again, kind of that same information, but this is just looking at our intakes. So this is our intake compared to our population. So we went back, got the historical data. We looked at the number of animals that we were taking into our shelter. We compared that to the population for Farmers Branch during that time. And so you can see the trends there. So 2015, our population was a little bit lower. We were taking in around 1,100 animals, and extrapolating that out to 2024, our current intake to date is 700, right at 700 animals, 698 to be exact. So 2024 is not on there, but you can see the dip here. So those numbers, kind of in that valley, those represent the COVID years. So animal shelters across the country experienced really, really low animal intake. Fiscal year, or 2022, those numbers skyrocketed and intake has increased. And this is not something unique to our city. This is something that is represented by animal shelters all across the country. So that's what that dip is there, those are the COVID years. And then so we took a daily, or we took that average, we calculated it to 3.236. So we found that we were taking in, compared to our population size, about 3.236% of that was our animal intake. We took that and extrapolated it out to our 2030 and 2045 projections. So you'll see a moderate increase of about 150 to 200 animals from our current shelter intake out to 2045. And again, that's just our best estimate. There's not a super great model to predict these trends in animal shelters, but this is the current best method to do that. So again, we analyzed all that historical data and extrapolated it out. Any questions?
So
No.
I have a question. So with all these extra animals, where are you going to put them?
That is a good question. So what we've done, we have really leaned into our foster community. We have a great community that really wants to support our shelter, and we just need to provide them the opportunity to help us. Since early May, we've been able to get 75 animals into foster program. Right now, we've got around 36 animals in foster homes. So, and I'll printed this out this morning, but we have a total of 39 animals in foster care currently, with 107 animals under our care. So 39 of those animals are in foster homes in our community and surrounding communities. Folks have graciously opened their doors and taken those animals in. It's important to note that we are still responsible for providing care, medical care, food, all of the normal things that we would provide in our shelter. We are still providing those at home. Most of those folks have decided to take in medical cases, and it's helped ease some of our current, population issues that we've experienced. So it's been helpful to get animals into foster care.
So what does your schedule look like for adoption events?
So that's something that I'm actively working on. We have partnerships, or we're working on partnerships with some local apartment complexes where they are willing. Pet inclusive housing is extremely difficult to find right now in our current market. So we've been able to work with a couple apartment complexes, and we're getting those details finalized. I'm also looking at opportunities for us to, it's very, very hot right now, but in the future, maybe in the fall, we have Hoya Park, we have a great captive audience there. We've been working with our parks department to get some signage up in our well-attended parks to let people know that our animal shelter is there. And then we're also looking at utilizing our adoption trailer that we have and actually bringing the trailer out to those parks to do adoption events there. So it's something that we're looking at. It just takes some logistics and coordinating.
Okay. My last question, I know you've got one board member who wants to expand the animal shelter. Well, we don't have money for that. So is it possible for the animal shelter, maybe that's a question for you, to have their own capital campaign? Let me
I'll let Jennifer explain some of what we're doing right now, and we can go from there. But they do have the donation, which they're working on with the animal shelter, and she has a little bit more on that.
Yes, so we are working actively with an architect to complete a needs assessment and design for an expansion, and that would use our donation that we received this past year, previous to my arrival. But we would be utilizing that donation, it was $1.5 million, to be able to put that towards an expansion in humane animal capacity, so humane care, but making sure that we're, as you can tell by the numbers, there's not a significant increase. This is using 2045 projection data on population, so there's not a huge demand, and we've really flatlined out. But we do have the capacity and the funding to hopefully expand that just enough to where it gives us a little bit of breathing room. As Tyler said, it's a very seasonal demand. In the summer, we are packed. This January, when I first started here, I walked through the hallway, and that first hallway there, there was only animals in that front green room, and then a few dogs on that left side. So there's just a seasonal demand from kittens and litters. Thankfully, we do have that flex room, that flex capacity that allows us to house one cat or one dog. We had 2 bunnies in the flex room. We've also had a litter, I believe it was 1 mama cat with 11 kittens. So really it's hard to stick to that 70 because that room can be 1 or it can be 11. And we would hope to maintain that in some way. I would hate to get rid of those flexible rooms because they provide us so much flexibility on what we can do in those rooms. But we do want to honor the bequest of that donor and make sure that we expand humane housing capacity for our animals.
Okay, thank you. Council, anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Jennifer. Tyler, welcome.
Thank you.
I couldn't do your job. I'm not an animal person, but I have a heart for these animals that come in from all different places and all different conditions. And, some of it's rather sad. It'd be difficult.
Certainly.
As a job for me, I'm sure you encounter that as well. So I remember a conversation with the prior animal control director, Sarah, and she had talked about we have known repeat visitors that come from other cities. We know they're coming from Dallas or they're coming from somewhere else. Have you looked at that? How's that tracking? Maybe just explain to us how you know a cat or a dog is a Dallas cat or a dog, and they've come to Farmers Branch now. And what levers are you pulling to make sure that maybe Dallas is handling Dallas's problems so Farmers Branch can handle Farmers Branch's problems?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent the first few weeks at our shelter watching, learning our processes, how we were intaking animals, the questions that we were asking, and we've started to make some changes in that. We were finding it's very easy to lie on a form, right? If you're presented a form that says, where did you find this animal? And our paperwork has a City of Farmers Branch, it's pretty obvious to people that they need to pick Josie and Valley View, right? That is probably our highest intake area, is that intersection there. So we've moved to more of a conversational based approach. And it allows us, generally speaking, after a 5-minute conversation with folks, we're able to kind of better hash out where those animals came from. Most people stick to their guns, but we are also developing relationships. So the city of Addison comes to mind. We get animals almost daily that come in from the Vitruvian Way apartment complexes there. Our shelter is half a mile away. It's logical that folks would think that we are their animal shelter. So we're working with the city of Addison to kind of build that relationship as well. And I think that there would be some opportunities for us, especially in our apartment communities, maybe not in Farmers Branch, but very close, Vitruvian Way coming to mind, to work with them as well to educate residents. But more of a conversational based approach as opposed to just filling out a form, because most people just lie on the form. They understand what we're getting at. So again, we haven't taken that form necessarily away, but we have moved to more of a conversational method.
Okay, that's great. You may not have an answer to this question, but I want to ask it anyways. How much of our shelter is used for animals that are brought in by people that found an animal or they're giving it up versus those animals that we've had to go out and get because they're not on a leash? You were probably here earlier when resident Candace Adams talked about, we seem to have a chronic issue of residents and unleashed dogs and cats, though I'm not
Yes.
sure how you leash a cat. But what's the utility in our shelter today for those giving up animals or finding animals versus those we have to go out and bring?
Right.
Bring in?
So, as the city's municipal shelter, we are required to take in animals from our jurisdiction, be it owner surrender or stray animals that are found. We have a duty to take those animals in. So if an animal is found free of restraint, loose, stray in our city, those animals are impounded by our animal control officers. We are working on, because we are at capacity, we've been at capacity for the last month or so with our dogs. We are working with officers to be able to return those animals to home in the field instead of having to come back into the shelter. We are providing follow-up resources, so we're microchipping those animals to make it easier in the future should those animals get loose. We're spending less resources trying to track an owner down. Microchips are generally pretty inexpensive to implant, and it saves us a lot of time on the back end. So we're working with pet owners to reduce that as well. I can give you our intake numbers, so I did prepare those. So 178 animals, and this is year to yesterday afternoon at 11:59. So owner guardian surrenders were 178. Animals returned to our custody, so adopted and returned were 11. Animals that we seized, be from animal cruelty, bite cases, or other, is 9. Animals that have been, or feral cats that have been TNR'd, so that are coming in for that sterilization surgery to be released, is 92. Stray animals accounts for our largest percentage, so year to date we've picked up 390 stray animals in Farmers Branch.
And do you have a number of how many of those strays are returned, or is a stray not returned?
I do. Sorry, I printed out a lot.
That's okay.
Let me flip through. So our return to owner guardian numbers, so this is all animals, cats, dogs, pocket pets, we get rabbits occasionally, anything that comes into our shelter. Animals returned to their owners is 105. So we've returned 105 of those animals to their owners.
Okay. My concern is I want to make sure that we're equipped to address the strays and the repeated offenders that, let their dogs off leash.
Right.
I seem to recall we do have some type of a fine assessed when somebody is not leashing their pet or they're repetitive.
Correct. Yeah, so what we've been doing, obviously me coming in 2 months in, still trying to figure out our enforcement model. I am trying to empower our staff to provide services to residents, specifically microchipping and education. Some people just, as crazy as it sounds, just simply don't know that they can't have their animals off leash at a park. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, in my opinion. Implanting those animals with a microchip is a really, really easy way for us to pick them up and return them to home. If it's a repeat offender, an animal has come into us multiple times, that animal is required to be sterilized under city ordinance, and they are returned to the owner, and they will be issued citations at the
Okay.
discretion of our animal control officers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Just trying to get an idea of the traffic flows. The chart, if you'll go forward a couple of slides to that projection. Not a huge change from today and the next 6 years, but then on out it starts to climb, and we're just guessing at that point.
We are. So we're taking, we analyze the last 10 years of data. The Humane Society of the United States, whom I used to work for, their general rule of thumb, and again, it depends on a lot of factors, socioeconomic and other, in communities, but their general rule of thumb is that per the population size, about 3% of that is going to be your animal shelter intake. And as you can see, our data trends pretty closely with that for the last 10 years. So while we don't expect there to be a huge increase, it's pretty difficult to tell. Pet-inclusive housing is becoming more and more elusive to find. And this morning at our shelter, we had somebody come in who was having to move apartments. They can no longer afford their rent, but cannot find somewhere to go with They had a pit bull type dog. So again, vet care is getting more unaffordable for most people. So as that increases, I can imagine a trend where these numbers go up further than our projections.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
A question for Ben. I heard there's a letter of a donation or something that was made to us, over $1 million. Can you help me get a copy of that? Or share that with me?
Yes, we will.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Seeing nothing else? Tyler, thank you so much.
Thank you, Council.
Next up is item C6, presentation on the emergency disaster plan related to alerts for impending weather and provide updates on the communication plan.
All right, Mayor, Council, thank you very much. So I just wanted to kind of present to you on how our emergency alerts work, and as well as our outdoor warning sirens and kind of our plan moving forward for helping promote this program, get some more people signed up. So Councilmember Neal asked us to come and just kind of talk about this. Yeah. So emergency alerting. So it kind of breaks out into a couple different areas. So first off, we have our branch alert system, which if y'all don't know about our branch alert system, it's our mass notification system, and it allows us to communicate directly with residents, businesses, really anyone who wants to get alerts whenever something bad is happening. So the branch alert program, we use a program called Everbridge. We just like to brand it as Branch Alert because it sounds a lot cooler. And it is an opt-in program. So with this program, the residents or whoever, could be somebody from outside the city that works here, they can opt into it and elect to receive notifications for any kind of severe weather. Our police department also has access to this system. They can send you alerts if there's any kind of road closures, anything like that. Now these alerts, they are, so when I say opt-in, it is opt-in, so we cannot force anyone to receive these alerts. They have to elect to sign up for them. So when they do sign up for alerts, they can choose if they want to receive anything about severe weather, and then they can choose what kind of severe weather alerts that they receive. I think there's 178 different hazards that they can receive alerting on. That is crazy. Most of those are not going to apply to us. Like tsunami warnings. If we have a tsunami hit us up here in Farmers Branch, that's a really bad day. Branch Alert isn't really going to help us at that point. Or coastal flooding, stuff like that. So some of them aren't going to apply to us. They can still pick to receive those alerts. They'll never get them, but yeah. So like I said, they can also elect to receive alerts on road closures, city updates, anything like that they want to receive. These alerts, they are going to go out automatically. So if they elect to, let's just say, severe thunderstorm warning, the second that the National Weather Service issues that warning, it's automatically going to go to Everbridge, and then they're going to send that alert out through Branch Alert to anyone that signed up to receive those. So it's not reliant on me manually sitting there and typing it out at 3 in the morning potentially to send those out to our residents. It's going to go out automatically. The exception to that obviously is PD. So if they are sending out a road closure alert or an Amber Alert, missing child, missing person, they're going to manually send those. And there's certain officers and people in administration that have access to the system. So kind of the reason I wanted to talk to y'all today about this is, if y'all can believe it, it's almost been 2 months since the Memorial Day storms. But after those storms, we did identify a few issues that we had with the system. It was very limited. I think I only found 3 or 4 reports of people not receiving alerts when they were in fact signed up for them. So when we did that investigation, we found a known issue with the Everbridge system that Everbridge is aware of, and they're working to fix it. where it wasn't plotting their address correctly. So it was actually plotting them, I think, up in Illinois, even though it was a Farmers Branch address. I know it is. But it just thought that they were up in a different state than they actually were. So I found all of those, and I was able to make corrections to it and correct all of those bad addresses for those residents that said that they didn't receive them. In addition to that, I downloaded all of our contacts that are signed up to receive branch alerts, went through them, audited all of them. I think I only found a few others that had issues with their address. So moving forward, we shouldn't have that issue anymore. And Everbridge is aware of it, and they are working to try and remedy that problem. A few improvements that we made with the system. It is now linked to the fire department Facebook page. So anytime a severe thunderstorm warning, tornado warning, flash flood warning, whatever it is, gets issued, that'll automatically get posted to the fire department Facebook page. So again, it takes another step out from me having to do it manually. It's just another automatic way to do that. And then these will also be shared on the police department and the city hall Facebook pages as well, to reach as many people as possible. So moving on to outdoor warning sirens. I wanted to get into the purpose of the sirens. A lot of people, there's some confusion with the sirens. All right, we live in Texas. Everyone calls them tornado sirens. They are used for tornadoes. They're used for a lot more than that. So basically the purpose of these sirens is to alert anyone that is outdoors that they need to go inside and get more information. And then they can take action based on that. So we live in North Texas. Luckily, we're out of storm season for now. But if you hear those sirens going off and it looks really mean outside, the sky looks really mean, that means go inside, there's danger outside. Go inside, there's danger outside, and get more information based on what's happening, and then you can take action. If you hear the sirens, you go inside, uh-oh, there's a tornado warning, go to your shelter location and take shelter. So I say they're outdoor warning sirens. They can be used for quite a few number of things. So severe weather obviously is one of them. That means either tornado warning is issued, severe thunderstorm warning is issued, and they're indicating 70-mile-an-hour winds or greater, or 1.5 inch hail or greater. Really easy way to tell is if they started doing this recently, a tag on the severe thunderstorm warning, if it says catastrophic or destructive, the sirens are going to get activated for that. It could also be for a national emergency. So if there's some kind of civil unrest or a foreign nation is attacking us or aliens are invading, we can activate them for that as well. Or for hazardous material release. So if on 35 a tanker truck overturns and they release some kind of really bad thing and we need to alert our residents that they need to go indoors and get more information, we can activate them for that as well. We can also activate them for anything else where we want somebody or people that are outdoors to go inside and get more information. I think you're catching on to the trend here, just when you hear them, go inside and get more information. So some limitations on the sirens. So they are only designed to be heard if you're outdoors. So you may not hear them if you're in your house. If you're in a storm, obviously there's really strong wind, there's a lot of noise, and so you might not hear them while you're inside.
Luke,
Yes, sir.
please repeat that, because the number of people who contacted me saying, I never heard the sirens. Please repeat what you just said and say it really loud into the microphone.
Sirens are only designed to be heard outdoors.
Thank you.
So if you are in your house and you don't hear them, they're not defective. They're not necessarily designed to be heard in your house or in your place of business, wherever you are. And also, strong wind can affect the propagation. So if y'all remember with the May 28th storm, we had strong wind coming straight out of the north. I think peak wind speeds near us was 83 miles an hour. So really strong wind that's blowing the sound kind of away from the north. So it's kind of blowing the sound south. And also wind is loud. So it's going to kind of drone out the siren sound. So kind of some limitations with the sirens there. So social media, again, we're going to be activating, or we're going to be posting on social media anytime there's a branch alert. does it automatically, so I don't have to sit there and type it out. But if the sirens ever do get activated for whatever reason, then we're going to be posting on there that they got activated and why they got activated, so residents aren't just left wondering, you know, are aliens in fact invading, or is it a tornado, or whatever it is. And then just posting on whatever other sources we have available. So posting on Facebook, and if there's any other alerts that come out, so then we can also post those on social media. Sometimes severe thunderstorm warning polygons aren't impacting the city yet, but they might be at some point. So we want to make sure that we're letting our residents know before they get to us what could be happening. So all of this kind of leads into my goal with the sirens, or not with sirens, with Branch Alert specifically, is to increase the amount of people that are signed up for it. Right now we only have 2,300 people registered for Branch Alerts. That could be residents, people that work here, people from outside the city that are just curious what's happening to the city of Farmers Branch. And actually, between May 28th and today, we had 109 people sign up for Branch Alerts, which is great. 109 people in 2 months, or less than 2 months. So I want to keep that trend going, get more people to sign up for these alerts. Hopefully everyone here is signed up for them. If you're not, then shameless plug, go to farmersbranchtx.gov/alerts, and you can sign up for the Branch Alerts. But now I'll have Jeff Brady come up, and he can kind of talk about how we're going to increase the signups.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Luke. That was a great summary. And that does bear repeating also, farmersbranchtx.gov/alerts. Alerts. So anyone watching, we highly encourage the sign up. So, and don't want to belabor the point. Luke has already done a great job of summarizing the program itself, but how do we get more people to sign up? So there's two problems here. One, it's not a new program. People tend to lean in and pay more attention if it's a new technology we're deploying, which it is not, in all fairness. And two, it's like insurance. You don't need it until you need it. So God willing, 99% of the time, none of us need the Branch Alert, so it becomes kind of invisible, easy to neglect or forget about. But we do need to ramp up. And so what Luke and I came up with is maybe a long-term campaign, maybe a seasonal campaign, maybe every year we have a sign-up campaign that lasts up to 3 months long, maybe it's just 1 month. But we have multiple ways we can reach people. Of course, the branch bulletin, the e-newsletter, has a high open rate, social media that Luke has already mentioned. We have digital monitors that have a slide that says, please sign up for Branch Alert, here's how to do it, and it's in a continual rotation. So it's up there all the time for anyone who is in a city building. And of course, the Branch Review printed newsletter goes out monthly. We can deploy that during this seasonal sign-up campaign. And the FB Forecast is a weekly video that we produce and distribute on Instagram and Facebook. So there are a lot of means that we can use to deploy people, but the main thing is it's not just a one-and-done thing. We really feel like this should perhaps be something we do annually, maybe before severe weather season, whenever that is. I mean, we have a lot of them, right? So hail or ice or tornadoes. So, but the point is maybe we pick a month and we emphasize now's the time. Remember, don't forget, this is the season to sign up for Branch Alerts, and we hope to raise that number. So, and that's all we have. But do any of you have questions about the program or how we intend to increase enrollment?
Questions? Comments?
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I think it's very much needed, and I think we do need to reemphasize this to our residents. I, too, was receiving many calls about the sirens, not their inability to hear the sirens. And just a quick note on the sirens. Are the sirens periodically tested? If so, how often, when, just for the residents to understand when they do hear this?
Yes.
Help clarify that for the residents.
Yeah, absolutely. We test the sirens every month on the first Wednesday of every month at 1 p.m. Weather permitting, obviously if it looks like it's about to rain or it is raining, we're not going to test them because that might be misinterpreted as severe weather or something else happening. But yes, we do test them once a month.
So the first Wednesday of every month at 1 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Weather permitting or
Weather permitting,
whatever,
yes.
so to test, to validate that. And just to follow on with that, is there a similar type of testing, validation with the Everbridge program? You noticed you had encountered a few issues here recently. Is there any kind of regularly scheduled testing, evaluation of that to make sure?
At this time, no, we don't have any kind of regular testing. They do go out fairly regularly, especially during the spring. So they do get tested very well during that time. But right now, we don't have any regular testing that we do.
Okay, and the only other thing wanted to inquire about was the ease of which a resident could participate in the alerts. Understand that there are some cities around us, other jurisdictions, where you can just text your phone number to some place and you're automatically added to the list for the alerts. Is that something we could do here or look into doing without having to create an account with all these details, just so it's easier? And similarly to opt out, if you want to get out of it as well. Is it something we can do or not?
With our current system, so with Everbridge, I checked with them. There is not a way to do that with our current system. And that kind of owes to the customization that you can do with it. So you can pick which alerts you receive, where the alerts go, whether it's text, phone call, email, and you can put in multiple numbers and emails that it gets
So
sent to.
that's not an option at all with them?
No,
Or is
sir.
it like an add-on type of fee that we'd have to pay for or something? It's just
No, with
it's just not available?
Yeah, with Everbridge, you have to create the account. Yep.
Is there another program that we could utilize that could then interface with Everbridge, in the sense we could just sign up easily with a text message and that information is also shared with Everbridge and be engaged in the program?
It is helpful to be able to customize. So if you just text in a number, then you wouldn't be able to customize exactly what kind of alerts you'd be receiving. So it seems like it's a pretty helpful program in that you can dial in exactly what sort of alerts you want to receive.
So if I wanted all alerts, I would have to do extra signups or?
No, you just,
Click all.
it's check boxes. You just check box.
Okay.
Check the one that you want to receive.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, but thank you very much. Appreciate the
Thank you.
presentation. Oh, one last thing, I'm sorry, just escaped me. Is there a process or procedure for council, mayor, department heads to be notified when there's an issue going on in the city? I'm thinking of like an old school call tree where you have a list of phone numbers. We have this event, we get on this list of phone numbers, we call people, hey, this is going on. In the event that maybe Everbridge is not functioning or email systems are down or texting's, I don't know, is there anything like a call tree here in the city for notifying?
So there may be a system through NTEC using some kind of reverse 911 system. There's not one that I'm aware of right now. We can figure that out and get it back to you, though.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Ben will call you.
So Ben, put me on the list, give me a call, please.
You're on the list.
Luke, thank you. I want to say thank you again because I had sent an email to Ben and he forwarded it to you about a couple of residents that said that they didn't receive alerts. And the way in which you handled that and the level of detail that you were able to then provide back to me and to the residents was a very strong indication that you take your job very seriously and that resident safety is extremely important to you. So first, I want to say a big thank you to you for taking that request very seriously.
So thank you.
The other thing, too, is it's quite enlightening. I thought when the sirens went off, I was supposed to go outside live on Facebook and show everybody the tornado.
That's what true Texans always say.
Right, right. But I've heard the same thing, folks. I'm in my house, I can't hear it. Well, they're not designed for that. A few suggestions or just thoughts, because I'd love 2,300 registered users on the Everbridge systems. that's great, but we have a long way to go there. Maybe y'all done this and I've just missed it, but have a sign-up table and encourage people at different events, city events. We have Denton Drive Live going on. I'm assuming if people are coming from Carrollton, does Carrollton subscribe to Everbridge? We can help other people in other cities, sign up on their phone. So have folks available to help assist people. Because I signed up for Branch Alert as well recently, and I kind of felt like the sign-up process was not the greatest user experience, but I understand that, I don't want tsunami warnings and a lot of irrelevant stuff. And I want text, or I want phone call, or that kind of thing. So it does make sense, albeit it takes a little bit more work. Some folks could use some help in that process. And some folks may be avoiding it just because they went there and like, oh, I don't want to do that, and abandoned. Train the folks at the rec center. So when people come in, hey, you signed up to get branch alerts in case of bad weather or emergencies, and they have a dialogue. Folks here at the service desk, make that a part of their normal dialogue when they encounter residents, before they say goodbye, have a good day, hey, you signed up for branch alerts, and promote that there. Branch Connection, when that reopens, library. There's a ton of opportunity to interact, and we don't have to have you or our fire department or police doing it. We can train staff and multiply very quickly the registrations. And I think that will get us a lot of mileage.
Yeah, and I will say the other 4 cities, or I guess the other 3 cities, all use the Everbridge system too. So Coppell, Carrollton, and Addison, all through NTEC.
Okay.
Our agreement is all through NTEC, so all 4 cities.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep. So we all use the same system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But yeah, definitely getting some other people trained to get people signed up, and yeah, I'm always pushing to get more people on the system.
Sure. Yeah. I think if we just maybe, Ben, we have some kind of contest, with staff or something. Sign people up. I signed up 2 friends. They signed up 2 friends, and next thing you know, everybody's got a subscription to it. But it could be something fun and that we could really promote in a fun way. That's all I have. Thank you very much for the update.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody? Yes, sir.
I just want to echo what Councilman Jackson said. The interactions that we've had with you has been phenomenal, so I really appreciate that. It's a great service. I use it myself, so that shows that it can't be that difficult to sign up for if I can do it. One of the things I was thinking, people are always looking for free stuff, right?
It's true.
So maybe have a monthly drawing, a $20 gift card, something like that. The only way you get into it by signing up, and then you can actually, possibly send the winner notification through the system.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This month's winner is Dave Reed, a $20 Kroger card or something.
Yeah.
It's a way to entice people.
Absolutely. Sir, thank you.
Anything? No? Okay. Luke, thank you very much.
Sir,
We
thank you.
appreciate it. Next up is C7, receive an update regarding economic development programs.
Hello again, Perla Tavera, Director of Economic Development, Tourism and Planning. What I wanted to do is being a new director, I wanted to bring over all the programs we have. So this month you get economic development programs, next month you get tourism, but I do want to stress this is not just what economic development does. This is just the programs we have. We do much more than just this. So these are the programs that we currently have in place, and then we'll go over each program. So we currently have the Texas PACE program, Neighborhood Partnership Program, Commercial Facade, Demo Rebuild, and the Renaissance. Texas PACE program was established back in 2017. This is a state-funded, state-organized. This was more for informational purposes and an ordinance that was required by the city, but we don't manage this one, but we do have it as an advertisement on our website. The Neighborhood Partnership Program was approved by Council in February 2020. Program did expire last year in March. This is an economic incentive for neighborhood groups to perform projects to enhance the property. Applications are due October and April, and then, of course, we bring them to council. We had a total of 3 participants. There is 1 participant that applied, but as I stated, the program expired, so that did not go forward. I do plan on bringing a resolution next month to see if this is a program you guys want to continue so that an applicant can reapply. Commercial facade revitalization, this was approved in council 2012. There's no expiration of this program currently. This is somewhat like the neighborhood partnership, but more for commercial programs, and funding up to $50,000 with a minimum project of 2. We had 25 total commercial business participants and 1 currently that submitted an application, which I will bring again next month. Demo Rebuild Program, this was approved by council in 2009. It was also amended in 2009 to include builders and developers. This was more of a residential single-family home program. This is a cash and tax rebate incentive to demolish old homes and build new homes, up to $30,000 in a cash rebate or 7 years of property tax. We had a total of 134 participants and 3 currently that are having to go through the application process. Renaissance program is the last program we're going to go over. This was formally, going through all the documents on this was pretty fun. So this was formally back in 1998, and it was considered the Dangerous Structure Fund prior to the 2006 resolution. This is where the city would purchase the properties, demolish them, and then sell the land to, it was usually sold to the developers, and this was a total of 76 total properties. And so that was just the programs in a quick brief, but if you guys have any questions regarding any of these program specifics, I am here to answer them.
Council, any questions for Perla? No?
I seem to recall from my predecessor, there was some discussion about a reevaluation on the demo rebuild program with the structuring of the fees. Am I missing something here? Was that already taken care of, or?
It had been talked about, but it's more, Perla's looking for what direction this council in its current form, is that something we still want to bring back and look at, just where are we going with some of these topics? And so that hasn't been changed in recent years.
It's just, I know that, cost of building is going up, and I didn't know if we need any adjustments in that area, that's all.
I believe all these programs add value to our city. I'm in favor of continuing all of them, so.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next up is C8, receive a report and discuss updates to the minor home repair program.
Mayor and Council, Jennifer Rainey, Assistant to the City Manager. So at the request of Mayor Pro Tem Roman, I'm presenting an update to the minor home repair program. So this was presented back in February, I believe it was. I was quick and new to my role and learned quite a bit, especially over the past Memorial Day storms. That was a really big impact for our community. Luke and Jeff have shared significant information about that, and we received quite a few calls about this minor home repair program. Over the past 7 months since I've been in my position, I've also received a few phone calls about this position. Often those have been from realtors, so they're seeking a program to help their future buyers or sellers upgrade their home to get rid of it. So in those situations, it wouldn't necessarily qualify for this, but we'll jump into this first. So the program objectives would remain the same. The program objectives as is to bring a single-family owner-occupied residence into compliance with the city's residential property maintenance standards and/or protect the health and safety of residents and the neighborhood, provide for accessibility modifications, improve the livability of a property and/or the neighborhood, and then when an owner-occupant lacks sufficient financial resources of their own to repair that need. So as I've had a few months of operating this program and seeing those types of calls that we received, I've looked over some of our peer communities and what they're doing, especially in situations where they don't have CDBG funds. So they're lower population size, they don't have that CDBG funding that is typically resourced through their community services or the neighborhood services department. So our current program was a 12-month pilot program, and it was budgeted with $75,000 from the general fund. It was a cost matching program, so it was received as a 50% grant. So if the project was $7,500, the resident would be required to pay half, and we would pay the other half. We also used eligibility in the current program, utilizing the HUD low income limits. So that's at 80% median family income or below. That comes into play in a couple of those phone conversations that I've had with residents where they just are over that. They're $100 or $200 or $300 per month over that eligibility window. So the residents provide bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, copy of their deed when they're applying for that. And then following their eligibility approval, the city would then bid that, quote that, and the repair was completed. It was secured via a first or second lien for up to 7 years, and that was based on the total value of the project. And we had one project that was funded. We did have as I said, some community interest in other projects. And they oftentimes in those discussions, the residents either self-disqualified them, so they would disqualify themselves, or it was a realtor who was seeking to improve a listing prior to it listing. And so in that situation, this program wouldn't be for that. Its intent is for owner-occupied residences and that they would remain there. So I provided quite a few proposed updates should council seek to continue this program, providing that we would transition from that cost matching grant to just a straight grant up to $5,000. So in many of those situations, when the residents are facing an income restricted, they're income restricted already, but they're facing a situation where a catastrophe happens, like the Memorial Day storms. They are maybe paycheck to paycheck in those situations and don't have the ability to do that cost match. So if the repair to their home is $2,000 and they simply don't have $2,000, in our current program, that cost match would require that they pay $1,000. In one situation, a resident was going back and forth on whether or not to apply or apply to some partnership programs with MetroCrest Services. And her situation was, do I pay my mortgage and stay up to date on my mortgage so that I don't go in default there, or do I pay for a home repair so that I can continue to live here? So in this recommendation, we've recommended that grant be up to $5,000 with no project total cap on that. So that would remove that cost matching restriction. Similarly, we would recommend updating that eligibility via market home value and homestead exemption as verified by DCAD data. So in those situations, post-Memorial Day storms, there was a lot of panic and chaos and maybe a tree that's smashed down in somebody's yard, and they just don't have the capacity to go and get that tree removed. So they're panicked about those things, they're concerned about their safety, they're concerned about their home and their property, and then we're asking them, please provide us all of this document. So hopefully, just to make some efficiencies there, we're seeking a proposed shift to switch that from eligibility with all of this documentation to eligibility via market home value and a homestead exemption. That's easy to verify, it's easier for staff to verify as well, and it'll hopefully make that process a lot smoother. Similar, we'd still do the 3 quotes reviewed by a city contractor. I did propose that we utilize a city-selected general contractor for review. So whether the resident receives those quotes, we get those quotes, however those quotes are received, that we review those for accuracy and to go and visit that site and ensure that that's correct service that's needed, that a contractor isn't overinflating. I know if you told me my roof was going to be repaired and it was going to cost $10,000 or it was going to cost $3,000, I don't know the difference. I'm not a subject matter expert on roof repair, and many of our residents aren't either. And so we want to make sure that we have a general contractor that can review that for applicability and then also for selection. So the city would pay up to $5,000 for that selected quote, and the resident would be responsible for any additional cost. We are going to I do anticipate running into situations where the resident wouldn't be able to afford those additional costs. That's just one of those situations with a limited budget for this program. That would be a unique situation, but an unfortunate situation. On this, the city contractor would also regularly visit during a project after it had been approved. So we do recommend that the resident does not start work on this project until it's been approved because it would no longer be eligible. So it couldn't be something that they started already, that they began working on, and it couldn't be something that they started work without a permit specifically. We want to make sure they're still following all of the other expectations that we have as a city. So that city contractor would go and regularly visit. This would be that general contractor would go and take pictures of the progress, ensure that the construction is being done, and then also do a final inspection of that. And then reducing that lien on the property. So the resident, we would seek that they agree to remain an owner-occupant for 3 years via their application process, but many of them had concerns about the lien. Putting a 7-year lien on somebody's property is overwhelming, especially when it's a resident who is paycheck to paycheck. In those situations, there was some conflict or some tension in those conversations on what the program currently has. So the proposed program phases would be that homeowner inquiry. So following those Memorial Day storms, the homeowner would submit an application, that documentation, and description or photos of damage that they need. The application would be reviewed for city staff for eligibility. We check their DCAD information to ensure that their property is below that median property value. I believe that was roughly $380,000 or so. I'll double check that number. And then we would go out and do that initial inspection. That's where that contractor would go out, review and inspect on site to verify the project needs. That a contractor hasn't given them a quote for the repair of their fence, but also the repair of things that maybe don't qualify for that program. And then we would review those 3 quotes for applicability. Following that, the homeowner would then be notified that they had received approval or denial by city staff, and then that selected quote contractor would also be notified. We'd want to make sure that they are both notified before the work begins. They would commence work. They would still have to go through the typical permitting process. Our community services department handles that, and so we're not trying to sidestep that. They would still be required to handle that through their contractor. And then that project oversight. So our review contractor, that general contractor, would go out regularly to visit, to evaluate, take progress, and to update staff. We would combine or compile all of that information, and then we'll complete that final inspection to verify the project has been completed, along with photo documentation. And then finally, a project closeout. That's what I've got.
Thank you
All right.
Thank you very much. Questions, gentlemen?
Thank you, Jennifer. This is a pretty cool program. Is this common in other cities? Do you know?
There were a few smaller cities that do have it, a smaller being under that 50,000 CDBG. Some of our neighbors in other areas, I believe I pulled up Wilmer or something like that, something a little bit further. But I did find some smaller cities are just starting to build these type of programs. We actually had a peer community just north of us who copied much of what our original program was and has just presented that within the past year to their council for creation.
Okay. And maybe you said this, and I may have missed it, but the current program, how much have we spent thus far?
Oh, it was below $10,000. I don't want to...
Less than 10,000.
Yes, less than 10,000, only one project funded.
So how do people know that this program exists?
That's a great question. So there hasn't been a significant amount of marketing on this. It is limited in supply, so
Sure.
significant marketing would create high demand for low supply, maybe some areas of discontent. However, if we were to move forward with this based off the recommendations provided and whatever council direction, I would expect and I would hope that our CSRs, our customer support representatives, are educated first, also our code enforcement officers. I believe that they're out in the community the most. They're interacting with our residents. They're the ones knocking on doors, helping people. I know you've received the compliments of the team who's been moving the tires or moving the tree limbs to assist residents. So a lot of times it's word of mouth to provide that. But again, making sure that we have correct and updated information on our website, correct and updated flyers and handouts so that when they're out in the community, if they see a situation or they encounter a resident who says, I just can't afford it. I know there was discussion about the dogs loose. If there's a fence that's in disrepair and the individual simply can't afford to fix their fence, this is a situation where both our code enforcement officers or our animal service officers could
Sure.
provide that flyer and information.
Yeah, I would think code enforcement would be one point of discovery.
Absolutely.
Maybe MetroCrest Services, make them aware of this program if we haven't, but, they serve a lot of the number of Farmers Branch families that are in need.
Absolutely.
When we have the initial inspection and there's a contractor that reviews 3 quotes for the work, is this contractor creating any kind of a liability situation for our city and saying, well, hey, this contractor has the best quote, best service or quality or whatever? Is that an opportunity for liability? What if that particular contractor actually doesn't do a good job or something else happens? Is there any recourse against the city in that regard?
Well, there's always a possibility that we're going to get sued for something if something goes wrong. We can build protections into the system and into the process. My understanding is that we would be using, rather than in-house staff, an outside professional who would supervise and monitor.
Correct, through the professional services agreement we've
Exactly,
drafted.
and we could ensure protections by requiring things like performance bonds and things like that,
Okay.
so.
You definitely want to make sure that we build in some protections. The last thing I want to do is try to do something good here and it turns around and bites us. Right. I don't know that I would favor going out and promoting the program necessarily. I think that those people that really, really need it would probably find it. And
We're aware of many of them.
sure,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
And
Okay.
just to speak to the MetroCrest services, we do have a little bit of a program overlap, so they do provide some accessibility features and assistance. So there are some situations where, in one of the situations I was speaking with a resident, they were behind on their bills, behind on some of their payments because they had paid for a modification for their house. They were able to seek services through MetroCrest services to get them caught up. So there are some unique qualifiers there that there's a little bit of overlap, but it's just making sure they get to the right person.
Right, and I seem to recall we had a senior resident that had some plumbing failure in their house, and they were just living with it because they couldn't afford to fix it. And so those are the kinds of scenarios I think that this program is designed to address, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Very low utilization for this first year, so I think the proposed, the refinement in the proposal makes some sense.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody over here, Councilman Reed?
Yeah, is this applicable to insurance deductibles?
Great question. So I outlined that specifically. In much of my research, I didn't see that insurance deductibles are a unique situation. If they apply, they would still need to go ahead and go forward with their insurance process. I believe, let me double check. So repairs covered by insurance, we outline that as homeowners must file that insurance claim for the repair of their real property first and submit all documentation there. This is on page 5 of the program updates. And then deductibles alone are not eligible for reimbursement through the program, but it's within the city's sole discretion to approve or deny assistance. So if there are situations that are exceeding deductible plus something, there is some eligibility, some room for us to make those decisions.
Excellent. And what if it's a an emergency situation, roof needs to be replaced and it's, Memorial Day storm type of thing, where going through the process could, taking time could create more damage to the home.
Absolutely, and that was the whole intent in kind of updating this to make this a little bit smoother. If you know anything about me, one of my favorite things is efficiency. From the place that you've got your coffee maker in your home so that you can make it more efficient in your life. But this was a situation where it's like, I just don't feel that we're hitting that mark, and so there's some of those proposed changes so that we're not requiring them with their roof with a huge hole over it to provide us all of this documentation on that front side. We can simply do a quick check on DCAD data to ensure they fall below that median property value, and then we're good to go on many of those items.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anything else?
So is this a reimbursement program? Is that?
No, so the current program is, it's a cost matching. The proposed program would just be the $5,000, up to $5,000. So we could pay the contractor in that situation.
Okay.
Up to that $5,000. Anything else the resident would be responsible for.
So it'd be a payment up front. It wouldn't be a reimbursement where the resident would have to incur the cost and the city would reimburse them.
Correct. Many of those frustrations and in many of those comments with residents just wasn't hitting the mark because they're already paycheck to paycheck.
Okay. And then how do you mitigate it against somebody turning around and then selling their home, taking advantage of the program in an appropriate manner that would otherwise have disqualified them?
Right.
How do you deal with that?
That's a difficult situation. If we go back towards that lien situation, that was kind of that clause or that barrier there to hold them responsible. Without that, if we're just asking that they certify in their application process that they are not seeking to sell their home and that they would maintain owner occupancy for the next 3 years.
Okay. And that's it for me. And obviously, I'm in favor of the program.
All right.
And in the way that you've presented it, I think we've come a long way in where it first started and learned a few things, and I'm pleased to see where it's at now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so I guess the one biggest point that stood out to me was the fact that there's no longer a required match.
Correct.
Which means that the homeowner could get funds from the city with no equity participation into the program.
Correct.
Then I do have a question regarding the city-selected review contractor.
Yes.
Who pays for that?
That's a great question. So that would come out of this budget, that $75,000 budget that it currently has. In the drafted professional services agreement, we've reviewed roughly $100 per hour for that individual. It's a low rate for the overall time that they would be spending. They may only spend 1 hour on site reviewing those contracts at the beginning, and then maybe one at the end. As you know, if you've received a roof repair over the past few months, it doesn't typically take weeks and weeks and weeks to replace that. They're pretty efficient, so it may not require multiple visits in many of these lower modifications.
Okay. Well, I don't have any major objections to the program, but I would hope that if we're going to do this, that we need to make sure that people, some of these people might be the same individuals who are needing health services from Woven Clinic, for example. So we need to make sure that we have proper health services available to them to keep them healthy so they can afford to live in their homes.
Absolutely.
So, council, I guess you need to indicate a preference of whether you support this program or not.
I have a
Indicate a
question.
preference. We're not taking a vote.
Yeah, I have a question regarding your proposed eligibility. Could you help me understand the market home value and the homestead exemption verification, that whole What's your
Yes.
thought process behind there?
Absolutely. So we're looking for a way that requires less documentation, providing that documentation, but that really hits at our residents who are income limited. I don't want to say income deprived or lower income, but income limited, so those paycheck to paycheck or below. Utilizing that HUD information, the current program has maximum income levels for a single person, one individual, for them to qualify, they would need to make below that $54,549. That's a close, I mean, we had many individuals who were just above that, but they're a single individual. They own their own home. They're making their paychecks, they're making their paychecks work, but they're just kind of scraping by. And so if we shift over to that DCAD data, we're able to verify that their home is below that value for the previous year, and also that they have a homestead exemption. So we're kind of checking that box that we know they live there.
Is there any consideration for seniors who may be living in a property that's over the 395? Because a lot of them are on fixed income, maybe relatively low, but they've lived in their home for 30, 40, 50 years, and their value is now much higher. How do we assist them in a situation like this if their value of their home is $400,000 or $500,000 now?
That's a great question. I know both Perla and I discussed a couple of different ways to go about this, whether we're using the median property value or the taxable value. That taxable value is lower. This one felt like it was the most inclusive for, again, median, so anything below that median. But we could explore opportunities to ensure that we have some access for those seniors as well.
So it's inclusive for most residents, but not all residents. Is that what I'm hearing?
Inclusive of anyone below that median property value, yeah.
Okay, and what's the reasoning behind a requirement to have homestead exemption?
So that they are the homeowner and do live there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Actually, it would also preclude it from being a second home. So if they have homestead, it's their primary residence versus rental property, something like that.
So, Mayor, I'm in favor of the program, but I'm not so much in favor of its eligibility requirements, so. I just think it excludes residents, particularly some of the seniors that might be on fixed incomes that happen to live in an expensive home.
Okay, well, there's general indication of favoring moving forward with the program.
I would just say, Mayor, and I can think of a few people specifically in that instance. They may have access to home equity lines of credit, some other, I mean, if they're in a home that's valued above median value and they're in a situation where they can't afford to make the repairs, I think unfortunately that's a scenario where they really need to consider. I know they lived in a house maybe for 40 or 50 years, but they need to consider the cost of living there. And that's just a fact of life for them. Well, sure, but the there may be access to the equity in their home to address their need. I'm just thinking out loud here about that. We've talked. This particular program has talked about what there's an income verification, right? There's a certain level of income they can't exceed.
Currently, yes.
We get bank statements, we review their financial situation. In that conversation, I guess, when somebody may be on the brink of being declined because of one aspect of their financial picture or another, that there's probably a little bit of a financial counseling that might be going on there, right? Sorry, you don't qualify for the program because you've got a ton of cash in the bank or something like that, right?
While I am not equipped to provide financial counseling.
Understood.
But,
Understood.
But yes, there are those. if we continued with the current program as is, there are those conversations of, oh, I
Yeah.
just don't qualify, I make too much, or my home is.
Yeah, those disqualifiers are
Yes.
probably fairly obvious in some of those situations.
And that's one of the reasons we have not received significant number of applications, because just that phone call alone is, oh,
Right.
I'm over that.
Right, understood.
Okay. I still believe that there's general consensus in moving forward with the program.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Next up is C10, discuss the city's solid waste fees for landfill closure and post-closure.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. Shane Davis, Deputy Director of Public Works. I was going to say the old department name. So just a quick overview of the landfill for a couple of y'all that are new. It's located in Louisville. If you haven't been up there, it's probably worth a tour. Let us know. We'll get you a trip up there so you can see the site. I personally need to go up there myself. It's operated by Camelot Landfill TXLP. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Republic Services. They operate the landfill, they build the cells, they purchase the equipment, they hire the employees, they find the business to come into the landfill, they do the environmental sampling and monitoring, the reporting, any permit mods. So they basically run the show up there. The city's responsibilities for the landfill is oversight of the permit. We're the permittee, so all the permits are held by the city, not by the operator. We will handle the closure, post-closure, and corrective action costs. And so one of those is landfill gas collection system. That's something you have to have throughout the life of the landfill and through the post-closure period. So we view that as a post-closure expense. So we pay for the design and the installation of the landfill gas collection system. We currently have a bid out right now for an expansion to that system. So in the next couple months, we'll be bringing you a contract award for the next installation of more wells out there. One of the things that's required when you operate a landfill is you do financial assurance. Let's say tomorrow you decided we don't have a landfill with our name on it, we're done with the landfill business. That's what the financial assurance is for. It's for the state to come in the next day, take over operation of your landfill, shut it down, go through the closure, the post-closure, and the corrective action. You do all that through third party. But every year, Tammy submits a financial assurance document to the state demonstrating we have the funds to pay for those things. One of the things we've used that fund for, again, are landfill gas collection systems, and we did use it during the landfill expansion, that 10-year time of my life. Interesting times. In 2018, we got the expansion approval. The new capacity for the site is 53.2 million cubic yards. The old one, just for reference, was 24.5. So we added quite a bit of cubic yards to the permit. The financial assurance, in 2018, we got the permit was about 32 million. This past year is at 40 million. So financial assurance varies from year to year based on inflation. So the high inflation factor we had over the past year really helped elevate that. But as the site continues to grow, again, that financial assurance is for to come in and close the site down. It's based on how much you've already built to date. So as it grows, this number is going to continue to grow on a yearly basis. So there's just a brief background. Some of the comments we had last time, we talked about a garbage fee and then closure, post-closure. Talking to collection companies, I say collection, I mean garbage collection. Typically the collection cost itself for your garbage fee for in other cities, because here in Farmers Branch, you do not pay a garbage fee. You're assessed to zero. But for those of us who live in other cities, such as Dallas, Carrollton, Capel, those surrounding us, about 70-75% of that bill is the collection cost. About a quarter of that is the actual disposal cost. There's two components to it. When I did this presentation for the fee back in September of last year, the ranges for the neighboring cities anywhere from $13.24 to $22.25. I'm curious to see where things go up to this next year. I suspect there'll be some increases. If you're a resident of Farmers Branch, you pay zero for garbage service at this point in time. And with our contract with Republic, or Camelot Landfill TXLP, we negotiated that we pay zero for the tipping fee as well. So when we do our RFPs for garbage collection, we always have to specify what our tipping fee is, and that there's no tipping fee cost to that. So for our costs were assessed, that is based just for the collection portion. So landfill revenue, the way our contract's set up with Camelot Landfill TXLP is every year, if we don't take 1 pound of trash out there, we get $1 million. It's a usage fee, $1 million up front. For every month they do operations, we get 16% of the gross revenue. In addition, with our contract, they pay us $250,000 per year for host fee support. So when we went through the landfill expansion, we had a settlement agreement with the city of Louisville and one with Carrollton. And because we were in Louisville and they'd had host fees from the other 2 landfills that went through expansion, we also had to pay a host fee to them. So basically, the city of Louisville gets $1.20 for every ton we take in. We also have to pay what's called an equalization fee to the city of Louisville. But that's all. The revenue goes from those things goes into the general fund, not the post-closure fund. Post-closure fund is separate. And as we discussed earlier, on an annual basis, or annual every other year process, we expand the gas collection system out there. When I first started, it was kind of more voluntary. But now, once we got the permanent amendment, because of the size of our landfill, there's a regulatory threshold. If trash has been buried for more than 5 years, you need to put wells into that. You need to start capturing that gas. So when I come with landfill gas collection system projects now, it's because they are required. It's not a nice to have. Currently, we have about $6.1 million balance for the post-closure fund. So the challenge is, every year we do what's called an annual report, and we project based on the number of tons we took that past year and how good of a job we did in terms of compacting. So compaction is how much trash can I cram into a cubic yard? That's what we measure. It's pounds per cubic yard or tons per cubic yard. Pick your unit you want to use. And so we send that to the state. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's a snapshot, so every year. So if you take a bunch of mattresses in 1 year, your compaction is going to be bad, just because mattresses just don't compact. Whereas if you take a bunch of soil is already pretty dense, all of a sudden your compaction looks great. So the type of material you take on a year-to-year basis impacts that number we turn in every year. So you can see the variation in terms of the life estimate of a landfill vary quite a bit from year to year, just based upon the amount of material you take and how good you can compact it. So based on our last submittal for post-closure, or the financial assurance, we're at $40.4 million is what we need for the financial assurance document for post-closure. And as I said, we have a $6.1 million balance at this point in time. So the thought was we'd implement a solid waste fee. The goal is that it was going to be designated to go into the post-closure to start working on getting money ready for when the bill comes due for the closure, which would be the first thing we have to pay for. We recently changed the service frequency for the west side from once a week to twice a week. So the new fee for everybody, or for non-seniors, would be $5 a month. Seniors pay half of that to be $2.50 per month. The plan was to begin assessing that in October 2024, add the fee to the utility bill, and periodically increase the fee. So when I gave this presentation before, the number was not as high. I had to correct it so we could get to that $40 million number. So it's already gone just from 1 year. The price increment increase has gone from like 5 years to 4 years. And I think the last one ended at $25. We're already up to $30 to try and get to that $40 million number over the time period we believe we have left. So again, as soon as you close the landfill or you say you're going to be closed, you have to start closure within a set number of days by regulations. This is your largest expense, is the closure. So I give you the kind of dates there. Those are 2 general dates. There's some other things you have to do in addition to that. Then you got 30 years of monitoring. You're looking for erosion. You got to, on a quarterly basis, sample for gas and gas probes and monitor the groundwater, monitor your stormwater. But just general site upkeep. Look at the fences. Anybody try to break in? If so, try to repair the fence. Not try, but repair the fence. And then corrective action. You have corrective action because the oldest portion of the landfill is a clay liner only. That met regulations at the time. Now your liner, if you go out there, is clay compacted, but there's also a flexible membrane liner that's welded together. So you got 2 layers of protection. But with that clay liner, as you see it like last summer and this summer the way we're going, if you look at your backyard, you start seeing these cracks in your yard if you don't water it often enough. Same thing happens at the landfill. Clay liner over time, if it stays dry, part of that will crack, some of that gas escapes and gets into the groundwater. That's what the corrective action is for. So it's not that we did anything wrong, it's just when you use a soil liner, high in clay, dry seasons, it cracks, pores are created till it rains again or saturates the ground. So that's what the corrective action for our landfill is related to. Am I doing the next one? I'm going to look for a little help from a friend on this particular slide.
You were doing so well.
Convenient, but I'm not sure.
Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance. So we included this slide as we were having those discussions at our budget retreat, where we're showing what a penny on average home value. We showed different home values of $380,000, which is from DCAD, the $500,000 value, and an $800,000 value. So I think it was asked on what would the trash fee correlate to as far as a property tax savings. So as you can see, a $5 fee, so for 12 months, you've got a $60 per year fee. So if you choose a $500,000 home, and again, that's going to differ on the home values, that's about a penny and a half. For our seniors, where it's $250 a month for the trash fee, that would equal our home value of $500,000, 1 penny on the senior. So that's what we kind of wanted to show you in correlation to our whole discussion on the trash fee and our tax rate.
So at this point in time, between the two of us, we'll try to answer any questions you may have for us, or let y'all have a conversation.
Council, any questions? Councilman Roman? Beard? No? Councilman Reed?
Yeah, we're talking about single-family homes. How does multifamilies and
No, I got that.
commercial properties like that come into play?
Good question. So in Farmers Branch, we have an open market system. So if you own a business, you get to negotiate with whatever vendor you want, for whatever service level you want, service frequency. That is up to you to make that determination. The city, by ordinance, gets, I think it's 10%, through 10 or 15, I think it's 10 of the gross revenue for anything collected in Farmers Branch. But it's an open market system. We're not involved with it. Other than unless you're making a mess and code enforcement would come out, or I'd go out and tell you to get it cleaned up. If you can't do that, then we can give you a citation. But our only role is just be enforcement from a litter standpoint.
Okay, so those proceeds, or that revenue, does that go into the general fund, or does it go?
Yes, sir.
So currently, all of our refuse fees from Republic and Waste Management, they go into our general fund revenues, and that goes to support. Then we have our solid waste division, also in the general fund, which pays for the salaries, for the assets, for all of our supplies related to that.
But none of that goes towards closure, post-closure?
So then we have been in the past transferring from general fund to the landfill closure, post-closure restricted fund. And that's where you've got the balance now close to $6.1 million.
Okay. Now, is there a formalized process for that, like a specific percentage, dollar amount, anything like that?
No, and in fact, we've in the past, we've transferred $1 million. This year, we've budgeted $2 million to transfer. So it's been a function of the budgeting process.
So basically availability of the funds. Okay.
Councilman Neal?
Yeah. How many, so roughly how much do we take in revenue from them roughly every year for the past 7 to 10 years, roughly, would you say? That
For
goes
7 to 10 years. I can tell you how much we have budgeted for, let's say we have about $6.8 6.8 million, I believe.
Yeah, he said we have 6.81 million in there now. I'm just trying to understand how much we're taking in every year over the past so many years.
So that's going to vary. A few years ago, we built a new scale house. So if you've never been up to our landfill, you need to go up there before we tear the building down. You need to see what the old scale house looked like. It is one scale. We had maybe 50 to 70 yards before we got out on the street. So that one scale is a huge bottleneck operationally. We could really only handle about 1,800, I realize this number I'm going to throw out may not mean anything to y'all, but 1,800 tons per day is about all we could handle because that bottleneck of that scale house was a deterrent for more waste coming in. So once we got the new scale house in place and the DFW landfill, which would have been a competitor of ours directly across the river from us, started shutting down, we started to see an influx of increased tonnage coming in. So there's going to be a ramp up in terms of how much we brought in. We can certainly get you the numbers, go back and look at what came in. I just don't know off the top of my head where we started about 7 years ago to where we are today.
Yeah, and I understand there's expenditures too. I'm just trying to get a feel for what we've been taking in and follow that up with, where the expenditure's going out.
Yeah, the big expenditures for us, once we got past the expansion, are the gas collection system. Like the bid we got out right now, I'm expecting that to come in at $900,000 or so. So it's close to $1 million every time we do a gas collection system expansion. Just because how tall the landfill is, how deep we have to go, the size of the headers we have to install now to pull the gas.
Do we have to file any forms or paperwork with the state or any other agency regarding our fund balance for closure?
The financial assurance document I referred to earlier that she submits every year has to show how you get those funds. So we have to demonstrate that financial assurance to the state on an annual basis, based on the size.
And how many years have we been filing that?
You have to do that every year by law.
And it's independently audited by an independent CPA firm.
And so if I want to get copies of that, is that available online somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we can provide it, yes.
I'd like to review that.
We can definitely get that for you. How many years back would you like?
At least maybe 5 or 6 years, along with that sort of income as well, if you don't mind. And is there some reason this goes directly to the general fund? Could we not just put this to landfill fund overall and just all funds, the monies that we need to spend in and out for the, I mean, that sounds like a dumb question. People notice people laughing, but I'm just trying to make this a much simpler process to try to understand than, general fund in here, transfer in, transfer out, closure fund, your head starts to spin after a while.
So it did start out in the general fund. So you can see different entities will put them into a proprietary fund or an enterprise fund like our water and sewer. So the way that it has been structured in the past and the way that we continue to do it is the revenues come into the general fund, expenses related to solid waste come out of the general fund, and then we put money towards the landfill restricted fund, so 2 funds, from the general fund. So excess goes over to the landfill closure, post-closure.
So the money that comes in from the operation of our landfill goes into the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
Are those funds restricted in any way or limited for the use strictly for landfill operations or utilization?
So it goes towards paying for our solid waste. We have our bulk collection, we have the trucks, the green grabber.
The CWD contract, but is there a true restriction? It's in the general fund. So like a lot of cities of landfill typically have an enterprise fund, as she described. So all that money you take in from solid waste collection and from the tipping fee to landfill would go into that fund.
So the answer is no, it's not restricted. It's just in the general fund. Although you primarily use it for that, there's no hard restriction that we could use it for something else if so approved or whatever. Okay, fine.
Correct.
I'm good, thanks.
So the landfill revenue that goes into the general fund, first, really simply offers us some flexibility to handle expenses for the landfill that maybe weren't planned or larger than we thought, or other expenses that we want to handle from the general fund. It also, I'm assuming, going into the general fund adds to that 90-day balance, right? It helps us keep that balance up. Otherwise, if we dedicate that money directly to closure, post-closure, now we need to make that up in order to maintain our 90-day.
So it's a little difficult to untangle it once it's already been set up and going into the general fund. So if we had started out at the very beginning as a separate enterprise fund, this would be a little bit maybe easier.
Sure, yeah. Money
But
from the
yes.
landfill comes in, goes to the landfill bucket,
Correct.
just like that, yeah, okay. And it's difficult to change that to that now,
A little bit difficult, yes.
okay. I'm going to ask you to help me understand why. and I make it real simple. It's late. There's a lot here. So simple is good.
So if you recall, with our water and our sewer funds, those are specifically restricted, and the general fund is that general donor. So it can loan to other funds, it can do other things. We're restricted with our enterprise funds and just sticking to those functions. So it can be unwound, but it will take a lot of effort and work to do, and it would require some additional cost with our audit and our accounting system.
So much easier, much more efficient, more cost effective to simply say, hey, this year we're going to take $2 million from our general fund and put it over here.
And we had structured to where that trash fee would go directly
Right,
into the landfill closure,
Right.
post-closure fund, which is restricted, yes.
okay. So I did receive, I'll call it several, more than a few, but I wouldn't call it a lot. Several emails from residents. And the resounding theme was a small fee from each resident makes the most sense to get us to where we need to be. It's real simple. Right? And I know that there's a concept of, well, why don't we just leave it in the tax rate, pull it from general fund and not have a fee, and it makes it more transparent, or maybe there are other reasons that I'm not recalling. But it makes sense to me that if there's a $5 trash fee that is set up to go directly to the landfill closure, post-closure fund, we're leveraging all the residents in a very small fee that then incrementally increases over 24 years to only $30. And I know those numbers can change over time, inflation, costs, et cetera. But the residents, I'll just quote a few of them. One said, it's our civic duty to do it this way. It's more transparent. It's very clear in the water bill, $5, trash fee. Got it. It's fiscally responsible is another quote. So, I like the idea of maintaining that trash fee the way that we agreed last year to do it, and to keep the schedule in place and to devote that to the closure, post-closure fund. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to try to put this in real simple terms, and I talk loud because I'm having a hard time hearing you all. So please speak a little bit louder. Basically, we need $40 million, $40.4 million. That's what you said on the report today. We have 6.1, which leaves a difference of $34.3 million. Simple math, if you divide the $34 million by 22 years, assuming a 22-year life, that's $1.56 million a year that needs to go into the fund, the closure fund. Okay. Yes, funds collected from the landfill go into the general fund. The city has been budgeting to put money into the closure side of things, and correct me if I'm wrong, what is accrued in the closure account are restricted funds.
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want everybody to know that the money that we have set aside that's in the closure account is restricted to use of the landfill. We can't take that and go build a road or anything else. So that's real important. This fee that we're talking about implementing that was approved once and we're still having discussion about it is accelerating the collection of revenue to be added to the landfill closure in order to assure that we are reaching that $40 million mark. Okay, and in addition, it also, I think, if you follow a logic, it conditions or prepares our residents for the inevitable time when they are going to have to pay the full cost of collection service. Okay, because when the landfill closes, then our contractor, whoever the city hires at that time, will be hauling our trash to some other site, perhaps in South Dallas, could be Irving, who knows, and there will be a cost for that, and that is what we're having to look at paying for. The $40 million isn't going to pay for that. That's taking care of the landfill for the next 30 years after closing that we have to monitor it. We're building up and conditioning our residents to the real fact that they are going to have to be paying for residential trash service. And hopefully that will include collection of brush also. So, but again, you know, all of these things, all of those costs are subject to a little bit of change, and that's going to be a whole other set of negotiation with providers at that time. So I'm just curious, and I'd like to just take a straw poll at this moment to know whether you are still on board with the implementation of this fee. And I'm looking to my left. I'll repeat. I'm just curious to know whether you all are still on board with the implementation of this fee. And I'm taking my own straw poll right now. That's what I said.
Girl, my mind has not changed.
I couldn't hear.
I'm good. My mind has not changed. Thank you.
Which is what? Yes or no?
What I've said before.
Please repeat.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Just want to make sure. Councilman Baird?
It still seems weird to me with the tax.
I'm not talking about the tax rate. I'm just talking about this. So are we still looking to move forward with this? And
Well,
are
my
you
answer is the
subscribing to the
same.
logic of it?
I understand we have to get $40 million. Can I ask a quick question? On the slide that's up, to get to that 40 million, that's that column, but that column is not adding any interest that we'll be bearing over those years? We'll be earning over those years?
Correct, but that's also the 40 million calculation as of today.
Oh, so the
There's
40
in-
million is not not with
It
inflation?
has inflation that's calculated into that, but there could be changes.
Sure.
And
So each year, the Each year, the state gives you an inflationary factor you have to use to make this new calculation.
Gotcha.
So you look at how many more acres did you build that year? What are the costs of that? We have models, very large spreadsheets that have the closure, post-closure, and the corrective action. But then you apply that new inflationary factor to whatever your new numbers are for that next upcoming year. This does not factor in, this is just the numbers we have for financial assurance. Along the way, we have these gas collection system costs. So that 6.1 is critical to help keeping those projects going along as well.
Gotcha.
So there'll be some expenditures coming out of that closure, post-closure all along the way to pay for gas collection.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I guess my answer is, for the next 5 years, I'd rather find $500,000 in cost and expense savings than fee the residents.
Okay, Councilman Reed?
I'd originally thought about incorporating it into the property tax, but it seems pretty convoluted, especially with, when you're going into the general fund and sort of. I think it's a simpler process to go with the $5 fee, increasing it per this schedule. I think it's much more understandable, much more explainable, or more easily explainable to residents. And then we don't have to worry about the tax aspect of it. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, very good. Again, I'm taking my own straw poll here, so I'm just wanting to know.
Understood. Mayor, I support the $5 fee schedule, the way this pro forma schedule is laid out. I think the aspect that you mentioned, the behavioral aspect and preparing residents over a long term for the eventual fact, they're going to have to pay for trash. So if they're not going to pay $5 today, then in 5 years, they're going to have to pay $10. Or in 20 years, they're going to have to pay $20. At some point, they're going to have to pay a trash fee. This takes the $5 and puts it into a restricted fund. Any other way, and we leave it to the council, future councils, to use their discretion with the general fund. Right? Okay? We're just kicking the can down the road. So I think implementing the $5 fee and dedicating that to the post-closure fund is a prudent thing to do because it protects this future liability from future councils using the money for other means.
Thank you. Councilman Neal?
I recognize we need to get to 40 million somehow. I'm just not quite clear on how we're going to get there. I sent a rather extensive, detailed email to Ben earlier today about this issue, and he responded as quickly as he could. I've not had a chance to digest that. My questions tonight also sort of require some further information that Tammy's going to get back to me on, and I'd just like to have that information clarified for me.
Well, again, I'll try to make this real simple. The $5 fee generates $498,000. We need to just simple math dictates that we need to be putting $1.56 million into the closure fund every year. Now, that will change a little bit because as the revenue from the garbage fee increases, it will be a little bit different number. But that's where we are dependent upon this council and future councils to be contributing probably somewhere around $1 million from the general fund towards this liability. And I'll quote a phrase that was used earlier when somebody said they used the financial model to figure future assurances for their clients. That's being responsible, and I think that's what we need to do. We need to, this is a basic financial model here that's going to get us to where we need to be and help position us for managing not only the closure of the landfill, but also prepare our residents for the inevitable fact that they will be paying for trash service in full come the day that that landfill closes. So I don't see how you argue your way around it. I don't see how you delay your way around it. This is something that we have to do as financial stewards or custodians of the city.
And I will get back with you on those revenues and expenditures. I'm pretty sure that our landfill revenue, I believe we've got budgeted 7.3. Our expenditures are right there along with it as far as the solid waste division. We have a lot of expenditures related to all the facilities, the salaries, and the fixed assets that go with our brush and our refuse.
You know, I know in the past, Shane, you made annual presentations to the council when I was on council to let us know the status of funds. And, for example, when we had to add the flare system and all that, there was expense involved. There was expense involved when we had the permit, the expansion permit. And so you gave very thorough and adequate reports to the council as to what our financial condition was every year regarding that. So, you know, this isn't something that we're just taking action today and then we're going to lose sight of. I expect to hear every year what we're looking at, because this is a huge number. It's huge. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I have one more question. Tammy and I had this discussion last week, and I just recalled it. If we rely on general fund, right, that's tax revenue. Basically, it's tax revenue that we're going to rely on to then each year make some discretionary movement of money from general fund to closure, post-closure, without, if we don't do this pro forma fee schedule, right? Our ability to continue to keep a tax rate or raise a tax rate in future years is beginning to dwindle. Am I right? I mean, we're limited in how much we can increase our tax revenue.
Correct.
Right.
We have the Senate Bill 2 cap for
Right.
3.5% growth.
Okay,
Correct.
so if we rely on general fund, which are tax dollars, which are limited because of SB2, and we're not properly funding this fund, we could find ourselves in a situation where we can't we can't make that move to this closure, post-closure fund.
If your revenues are equaling your expenses every year with the landfill, you don't have much excess to support your landfill closure, post-closure.
Right, okay, thank you. You said it much better than I was trying to say it. But that's what I'm concerned about, is with the decreasing ability to pull this from tax revenue and our ability to increase tax revenue for expenses like this. This makes a whole lot of sense to tack it to the trash or to the water bill and send it straight to the post-closure fund. Thank you.
All right, so I believe...
One more point, if I may.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing to consider, too, is if we're relying totally on revenue exceeding expense, just take a look at what happened on Memorial Day, you know, and all the additional expenses, unplanned expenses we had picking up brush and all that, and disposal, running the trucks, the crews, all that. That's not baked into the system. So that's increasing expenses and taking, you know, cutting that delta down even more if there is one. Who knows whether that's going to happen again? So relying upon that to make up for the shortfall just doesn't make sense.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So Mayor and Council, basically what I'll do with this case is we build the budget for you. For my understanding is we'll put the fee in. We'll also be very cognizant that even though there's a tax rate reduction, we want to make sure we're clarified how that's interacting with the fee increase and show a true representation to the residents on what that delta is. So it's not just, hey, there's a tax rate decrease. We're going to incorporate the fee burden into that calculation and show that as well to make sure we meet the transparency y'all have asked me about with that relationship. So it's not just replace with one. So we'll work on that as well. So the proposed budget that you all will receive in about 2 weeks, we'll have that information in there.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else on this topic? Councilman Baird? Okay, light was on, so, okay. Good, good, very good. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is C11, receive an update from the mayor and city council members regarding board liaison information from outside organizations and other meetings attended. In the interest of time, I'm going to dispense with that, and I'll give my report at the next meeting. Anybody? MetroCrest?
MetroCrest board meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay. Good, good, good. Okay. That's that. C12, discuss future agenda items. Does anybody have anything for future? Very good. We did not do C1, which was to discuss regular agenda items, but we've already had our regular agenda item, a regular agenda, so we will dispense with that. I'm going to read us into executive session because we still have to do that. So, please bear with me. City shall convene into a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072, real property, Section 551.073, proposed donation, and Section 551.071, consultation with attorney to discuss and deliberate and to receive legal advice from the city attorney regarding a proposed redevelopment and possible land exchange relating to Farmers Ranch Elementary School in Cox Park. In addition, city will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with city attorney to receive legal advice regarding the renewal of a warehouse lease agreement. In addition, city will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.074 of Texas Government Code, personnel, to deliberate the appointment, employment, reassignment, and duties of the Communications Department, and the city will convene into a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, personnel, discuss and deliberate on proposals for the city attorney legal services. And finally, this city council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.071, I believe, consultation with the city attorney to discuss and deliberate Firehouse Theater. We will go to the city manager's conference room and convene in 10 minutes. Welcome back at 12:33. There was no action to be taken as a result of executive session, so that will conclude our meeting for this evening, and we will adjourn at 12:33. Thank you very much.
See you all tomorrow.